This is Rock and Roll Grad School with your hosts, Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling. Why are we here? 'Cause we're here. Roll the bones.
Hello, kiddies. We are going to have a good time together. We have April March on the show. Can we say she's a chanteuse, would you say?
Or a chanteuse?
Chanteuse? Maybe. I don't.
A chanteuse is like if she was a chartreuse singer.
Okay. Well, I am incorrect. So she has a new record. I guess it's not really a new record. It is a record that was ready last year and did so well on Record Store Day that they've put it on other formats.
Yes.
So I do have some bad news for you.
Why?
Well, Original, the skincare line designed and created by David Lee Roth, is closing.
What?
Yeah.
I didn't even know it existed, which is
Yes.
even worse.
Well, it is designed to preserve and protect your tattoos. So Dave's post was...
oh, I do remember this. That's why I didn't remember, because I didn't have any tattoos.
Right. So it was suitably, I think we could say Rothian, his post.
Mm-hmm.
The post just said, first, our favorite restaurant, the Corner Bookstore, now us. What a long, strange trip it's been.
All right.
All right. Yeah. So...
Did it say hello, friend?
It did not.
What?
So as you know, he says he's retiring. He canceled all of his retirement shows with no word of... Dave needs to come back for just a little bit.
Just a smidge.
And if he wants to come on the show, we will eat ice cream with him and we will talk about whatever he wants.
Oh, anything.
Yeah, his feelings on teachers, his feeling about Panama.
True.
Was this always the plan for this album, to do the Record Store Day release and then put it out on digital media later? Or was this just a big tease that sort of like people dug it and you're like, oh, more folks want to hear this?
Yeah, I mean, what happened was I didn't press enough for Record Store Day. So it oversold. And for instance, there were no copies that could go to Europe. So we wanted to try and find, I didn't really want to just press more vinyl myself. Mm-hmm. So I got it to Omnivore and they decided to pick it up. Yeah.
Why didn't you want to do any more vinyl?
Well, no, I want to do more vinyl. I just, I'm not a business person, and it was a lot to sort of learn how to, I mean, I had a lot of help because, Third Man helped a lot with the whole pressing process, but it was not something I want to do. You know what I mean?
Yes, no, it makes sense.
I'd rather have a label do it. They're much better at it than me. Like because for instance, I didn't press enough, and then I didn't really compensate for like promo copies. So there are about 40 people playing on the record. None of them have copies because there weren't any copies.
Right.
Stuff like that. So
I love the title. I love that you use the Cinerama font. I love that the arc light shows up in the liner notes. Why all of your music has this very ethereal quality that harkens back to that era when advertising movie as being in Cinerama was a great marketing tool. Why do you go with that title now? Because really, in some ways, it applies to all of your music.
I mean, well, film is just a really big part of, inspiration for me. And, having lived in LA for a long time, obviously the Cinerama Dome is really magical. And, Mehdi Zaned, who I wrote and also co-produced the album with me, while we were in LA recording, he was doing drawings of a lot of the various, because he's an architect. So, so the etching that's on the back of In Cinerama, and there's more etchings that he did while we were recording of just various places in LA.
Are those the ones that are in the liner notes on the album?
Oh, yeah, maybe. So you've seen the other etchings?
Yeah, on the liner notes, yes. The public storage building and the houses and stuff like that. Yeah.
Mehdi did those while we were recording. He didn't do the etchings while we were recording, obviously. When he went back to Paris, he did the etchings, but he sketched all of that. So, it was very much a part of the process was, the Cinerama Dome. So then when we tried to, when we were coming up for, a title and what's the package gonna look like, I just really wanted that etching on the cover, and also it's just the whole Cinerama process that, it's widescreen, and this is like a huge ensemble cast of people on this album, so it just seemed fitting,
What made you decide to go with something so sweeping and big, as far as that the cast of characters, as you said, to have 48 people playing on it is amazing.
Well, it just evolved. The album started, there's a film director, who's a friend of mine named Jonathan Coet, who he directed Tarnation. I don't know if you ever saw Tarnation.
I'm certainly familiar with it, yeah.
Yeah, so the whole thing started with him asking me and Mehdi to record songs for his new film. So we recorded Lift Off and Down the Line for his film. And then after we did those two songs, we just really liked the results, that we decided we should just carry on and make a whole album. And then, from there, I did a TV show in Paris with Tony Allen, and I asked him, if he would, not specifically on this album, it took about a year to get an answer. To get him to schedule him. And his manager did write to me and say that Tony Allen would be available. It was for a date that was 5 weeks away. So I called Mehdi, and we wrote songs really fast just to record with Tony. So it kind of evolved, and then I think it just became more and more ambitious because, once Tony came on board, it was sort of like, okay, well, we might as well just go for, because it had been a dream of mine to record with him for, it was like, I would love to do that. So then when that happened, it was like, well, who else would I love to record with? And that was Marilyn Wilson, because the group that she had with her sister, it's one of my favorite, albums of all time. So it just kind of snowballed, that she said, yeah, it's sort of like, okay, just do it. Come on.
Who's next?
Let's make this a great album. And and it was made at a time, it was made in that sort of, not sort of, in the post-Floyd moment. So there was a lot of thought and conversation around that, and wanting to this is not an album about race or anything, but wanting the album to be a conversation, which, sort of natural conceptually, because, having Tony Allen play drums, that is what drums are in Africa. It's the way they communicate between villages,
right?
Traditionally. So, it's just sort of, I think everything kind of just worked all together in that way to, just this desire to have a very large conversation with a large group of people from all over the world, you know, because there's people from, you know, there's the string orchestras in Macedonia, Sean O'Hagan, who did string arrangements, you know, he's up in the United Kingdom, or maybe he was in Scotland, I don't know. You know, he's representing that continent. And then there's, you know, there's France, there's California Republic, there's New York. So I think now I'm forgetting what your question was.
No, so just how you got basically where it was, like how you got all these incredible people together, because that's no small feat. So you've answered it beautifully. So no, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Well, and it also seems too, like if you can get Tony Allen on your album, you get Tony Allen on your album. Like that's a no-brainer. And I guess that sort of for you was a great motivator to finishing the damn record is you got this amazing musician coming in and you got to have him play something.
Yeah, I mean, we had to write songs, really. We had 5 weeks to write songs to go into the studio with him. And, you know, and that's a tall order because it's not like you're going to write, you know, they had to be good and they had to be, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
So
was the pressure, it is a tall order, but did it come easier than you thought? Or were you thinking too much about it and it became harder than you thought?
It was easy because, like, you know, working with Mehdi is very easy. He's Tunisian. He's like sort of even more kind of mellow and easygoing than a Californian. So it was just sort of like, yeah, you know, we're going to do this and it's going to be great. And, you know, it just, it just kind of flowed also because it's sort of, I mean, I'd been thinking about it for like a year. So I've been hoping for it for like a year because I guess I met Tony on this TV show and then I just sort of patiently kept emailing checking in with his manager. And then finally, like a year later, he was like, okay, he's ready for you in this date. So it wasn't, you know, it wasn't like out of nowhere. You know, it sort of had some thoughts about what kind of thing we'd like to do with him.
Can you talk a little bit about your sound in general? Obviously, so much of the stuff that's written about you name checks these French singer-songwriters, your Gainsbourgs, your, you know, folks like that, and that you've covered some of that. What is it about that music, do you think, that kind of people get excited by? Because again, like I put on this album and I got all excited, like, oh, here's more music that sounds exactly like this thing that I love. And it's got almost an undefinable quality to it.
So wait, what's the question? Like, what is it about French music, or
what is it about this sort of 60s pop that really draws you to it, that you kind of keep playing with and messing around with that as a genre?
Well, you know, I do think it's sort of, it's my humble opinion, but I would say, in my humble opinion, like the 60s and the 70s are sort of, maybe sort of the golden era of pop music. You know, I mean, I love pop music from the 80s too, but there's, you know, sort of the invention of, well, that was in the 50s, but just electric guitars and, you know, synthesizers and things like that. So it's sort of the beginning of, you know, there's a lot of energy. I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of new energy. It's sort of the beginnings of pop music, of this, I don't know, of like this kind of pop music. Because obviously you could say Frank Sinatra's pop music, you know.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, I think also, you know, if you listen to everything I do, there's a lot of, I mean, I don't know if I would if I'm gonna now make like a 90s album. But, you know, I kind of already did that because a lot of what I made was in the 90s. So it's more just kind of this sort of desire to, I mean, it sounds, I don't, without sounding pretentious, you know, I like to learn things. Like the whole reason I did all those Gansford covers and whatnot is because, you know, I had been in bands before, someone else was producing, and I wanted to produce and arrange myself, and I needed to learn how to do that. So I just picked the songs that I liked and figured out how to be a producer and how to be an arranger. And, you know, it just seemed sort of basic to go back to the beginning of French pop music with Gainsbourg, or, you know, with anything like that. And I was also spending time in the studio at that period with Andy Paley and Brian Wilson. So, you know, Brian he's part of the birth of pop music.
Of course.
So I learned so much from just watching the two of them work. And for instance, when I was in the middle of doing Chick Habit, and I was trying to figure out how to arrange it, and I had recorded the brass, and then I don't know, whatever, next week I was in the studio with Brian and Andy, and I told Brian I wasn't happy with how the brass wasn't getting the sound I wanted with the brass, and he said, oh, well, you know, you should just, you know, use your voice, you know, there's always your voice to use. And so that's why I ended up, if you listen to the brass on Chick Habit, you can hear me in the background going, wow, wow, wow. And it's because of that, you know, like what I was learning how to arrange. And so I think I always just go back to the beginning, because it's sort of the roots. This period is sort of, to me, the roots of pop music, you know, and I love disco. And so I go to the roots of that, which is 70s and 80s, you know, and it's not like I try and make the same thing, but it's sort of, there's just a lot to be learned that you can sort of vibe off of or whatever. I mean, I think that is, you know, this album does sound like it's from that era, but, you know, we didn't set out to make like a 60s record. It's just, these methods and things, they're just really old and classic, and we just chose to use it.
Did you go back? Did you go kind of, I don't want to say as far as, but did you record on tape? Did you do it all digitally? Are you sort of along the Jack White school of like, it needs to be the way all the records I love were recorded?
No, I mean, I was like that when I was a lot younger. Like I didn't want any synthesizers on my albums, anything like that. And then when I started working with Bertrand Burela, like in 93 or 94, and I would be like, we have to have I want a real trombone. I don't want all this synthesizer crap. He was like, whoa, you are so conservative. And he sort of cured me of all of that, because I don't know if you're familiar with those albums I did with him, Chrominance, Decoder, and Triggers. But
yeah.
No, he's a master at using a synthesizer as it's just another instrument. It's the same as a guitar, or it's just a different color. So
it won't hurt you, is what you're saying?
Yeah. So I mean, I love to work on tape. Like I did record an EP at Jack White's on tape in his studio last year, I guess it was, during COVID. I don't know if you guys heard that EP.
I don't think I've heard that one. I've heard the earlier records.
Right.
So, but if you had your druthers, you go for tape, or it doesn't really matter anymore?
Yeah, but with this, it's like, it's completely not affordable.
Well,
yeah.
there's that.
And not only that, you know, to fly like 2-inch tape to Macedonia, or between like Paris and Los Angeles, and forget it.
That's putting a lot of trust in the mail service too.
Yeah, and then again, and and the thing about this album and the reason that it took so long is because I paid for it and I'd never done that before. So it's like I'd get we'd record and then I'd sort of let the well fill back up again for sometimes like, almost a year, whatever, it wasn't like I had like, oh, there's a huge pot of money and we're just going to go record for 3 weeks. It was
Right.
Gradually, and tape was just not practical or affordable. But I'm not a purist. Like I love working on tape. It was such a treat to go to Jack White's, and he's got beautiful equipment and tape machines and everything. But yeah, if you're offering,
Yeah, I think Luke wants to.
Yeah, I think I just volunteered.
I think so.
Exactly. Definitely want to do it on tape, but I have no problem doing it digitally.
Well, and beyond your music, which is incredible, you're so talented in so many arenas, from your illustrations to as an author, and obviously the We're Gonna Be Friends book it's amazing. I love it so much. And did you always know you had all of these talents in you, or was there one that you leaned towards as a kid?
Well, I've been doing both, and so since I was really little, like we had a toy tape recorder, so I started doing that when I was maybe like 4 or 5. It was just one reel though, so you just taped over, and I just put on like the soundtrack to Oliver or something and sing along and record it or whatever.
Of course.
Yeah, and I was drawing, but I think I did both for a long time, and that was hard to do both. And then I had kids when I was I guess they were born in 2002 and 2004, and after that I was like, I can't be a mom and an animator and a musician, so I just sort of ended up sticking more with music because it's just easier. Drawing is really hard.
I think both are really hard.
But drawing for me is really hard. Like that book, that was painful, actually.
I'm sure it was. It looks it does look painful.
It's mostly because you're just all alone. I was just all alone, and I'm a collaborator, so Jack had written it, but it wasn't like he was there. It was there helping me draw it. You have to draw it by yourself. And so I do prefer, when I was an animator, because I'm not animating anymore, I loved that because you were in a bullpen with like 40 or 50 people drawing.
Yeah.
But they don't do animation like that. It's sort of like the tape machine.
Yeah.
So you don't have a whole bullpen of animators so much anymore. A lot of people are working all over the world in their houses.
Who's That Girl was one of my favorite movies of all time.
Which one?
Who's That Girl?
Oh, you're kidding.
I loved it. I loved it when it came out. I still love it. I was like prime audience. I'm 46, so I was like prime audience age, and I loved it. And
I should watch it again. I don't remember. I just remember there was a tiger in it.
Yeah. And Griffin Dunn. It's ridiculous, but it's wonderful. And your animations are wonderful. So
well, that was a big team.
Yeah.
So like those aren't, you're not seeing just my drawings. It's a lot of, and I like that.
Yeah, I get that. I wouldn't want to even do this solo. I like having, believe it or not, I like
for reasons I don't understand too. Yeah.
You, on the other hand, may like to be solo.
Did your work in art and your drawing and animation, did that at all inform your music and help you explore it in a different way than you think you would have found just going solely on following the kind of musical path?
Definitely. For one thing, being an animator it's basically being an actor with a pencil. So I was trained to, I had to do a little bit of acting training. We were trained a little bit with acting because that's all of it. You have to learn. The studio that I worked on, that I worked at the time when I was doing a lot of recording in the 90s, the director, when it was Ren and Stimpy. I don't know if you guys saw Ren and Stimpy.
Oh, yeah.
Cool,
But
absolutely.
in order to draw, like Stimpy freaking out or Ren sad or whatever, we were trained like you have to be making that expression while you're drawing because you're an actor. It has to go into the drawing and then it's felt. If someone's just like drawing a smile and they're like, cleaning their toenails or whatever, it doesn't come through. So that definitely helped my singing a lot because I started to think in terms more of acting and really, because some songs are very heartfelt and they're from a specific place, and then some songs, if I ended up in the studio and I wasn't feeling that way, I had to inhabit that somehow, and that's acting, really.
I dreamt the other night I switched off the world that I knew, and all at once I began to lift off way up to the blue, and the world below we'd never know. All the noises fell, it swept off the colors anew.
In Cinerama, the new record by April March, is available this Friday wherever you get your records. For more information, you can check out our website, aprilmarch.com.
You can check us out on all the various socials. Be sure to visit our website at rockandrollgradschool.com, and don't forget to leave us a review.
Today's show is produced by myself and Heidi Hedquist. Our reluctant producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our willing producers are Rachel Allen and Randy Jeanette. Our intern is Zach Jackson. This one's for Philippe. Thank you, good night, and may all your favorite bands stay together.